Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Beginning of our Sunday class. First, everybody sit comfortably. Wherever you sit on the chair, sit on the bed, sit on the cushion, sit very comfortably. Then second, you must rejoice yourself to able to wake up this morning to have another good opportunity to studying Dharma, to practice the Dharma. So you reflect on our new day today, because so many people passed away yesterday, last night, maybe early morning today. But still, we are very fortunate to survive, have another good opportunity to meet your friends and family. Also, importantly, we have a good opportunity about studying Dharma, practicing Dharma. Also, this opportunity, we never know we can have another day or not. Please meditate on impermanence. Particularly, reflect on the subtle impermanence. Particularly, remember the death. The death will comes any times, come for anybody. None of the sentient being able to escape from the death, aging, and sickness until we free from the ignorance, attachment, anger, and hatred. In order to free from ignorance, we need to realize the truth, the reality of all phenomena. Because we are very confused person. We have a lot of confusion about the truth and reality. Therefore, in order to free from ignorance, in order to stop arising ignorance continuously, we need to realize the truth which is selflessness or emptiness. In order to free from attachment, we need to practice the detachment. In order to free from anger, hatred, envy, we need to practice compassion. Therefore, at the beginning of our class, everybody visualize all sentient beings, particularly all human beings. Please remember or visualize all sentient beings around us. When we visualized all sentient beings, then we realized all sentient beings always want happiness, don't want any kinds of sufferings. Realizing that all sentient beings want happiness, don't want suffering, then we need to think what is the connection me and rest of the sentient beings. Me, individual you. First, you need to think what is the connection me and sentient beings, all sentient beings. Particularly, what is the connection between you and all human beings? Please reflect on the connectivity you and rest of the sentient beings and you and rest of the human beings. So when we think about the connection between me and sentient beings, particularly human beings, based on this lifetime, so we have the deep connection with rest of the human beings. For example, this morning, everybody drink something, drink cup of water, drink coffee or tea, whatever you drink, like a juice. The drink which you had is come from others. The food you ate this morning is come from others. The clothes you wear, it come from others. The house where you live is come from others. Therefore, for us, others human beings are more important than you are safe. When we say other, it's not only the other people who live in Singapore. Yes, so many Singaporeans, very important for you. They provide food, clothes, drink, house, cars, buses, road. All the condition is come from through many Singaporeans. Therefore, now you can see you have a important connection with so many Singaporeans. We can say you have a connection with all Singaporeans. How? You are enjoying, the good life, the clean environment, the very secure environment because of all the Singaporean pay tax. So therefore, you have a very good life. Now you can see you have a connection with all Singaporeans. Second, think about what is the connection between you and the people who live, outside from Singapore, like Malaysian people. We got so many food and drink, fruits, clothes from Malaysia, from Thailand, from Vietnam, from Indonesia, from India, from China, all parts of Asia, all the oil, gas, petrol we have because it's come from other countries. Now you can see you have a deep connection with the rest of the Asian people. Also, you need to realize you have an important connection with the European, American, Africans. Therefore, every day you are connected with the rest of the human beings. Also, you are every day connected with the rest of the sentient beings. So therefore, there's a good reason to have a love and compassion towards all human beings, all sentient beings, based on this lifetime. Second, how I have a connection with the sentient beings who are very far away from you, because you don't have, you don't get anything from the people, the sentient being who lives, billions kilometers away from you. What is the connection between you and them and you? Then second, you need to think about the previous life and next life. As a Buddhist, we believe in next life. We believe in previous life. Then we must raise a question. Is there previous life? Is there next life or not? If there's a previous life, how many lives I have in the past? Just one life, two lives, millions life, billions life. So if you think that way, then you can think, yes, actually, I have connection with all sentient beings within this life, or previous life. So based on these logics and reasonings, you need to think how I should develop compassion. Because we practice the Mahayana path, which is the path to achieve Buddhahood. So in order to achieve Buddhahood, the most important practice are three, right? So I'm doing the revision. Compassion, the awakening mind, which is bodhicitta, then the skillful means the wisdom, which realize the truth. The three things are very important cause to achieve Buddhahood. Therefore, every day our practice must start it with the compassion based on remember all the reasonings and logics. Right? Therefore, first everybody visualize all sentient beings, remember the connections, the reasoning, and develop pure love towards, pure compassion towards all sentient beings. Thank you. Also, when we think about, having great compassion, but we all, everybody, all of us, we are very ordinary human being. We are not a king and queen. We are not a, powerful person can control whole world. We are very ordinary and simple person. But when we think about our practice and practicing great compassion towards all sentient beings, then you become very extraordinary person because your motivation is to benefit all sentient beings. Not only that, if you have a, unconditioned or compassion, great compassion, therefore you don't have a concept of this is my enemy or this is my, close friend. Also, you don't have the feeling to hate someone because you already realize all sentient beings like my dear brother and sister. This compassion makes you very peaceful, makes you very calm. Somebody, criticize you, you won't get angry. Look like your best friend, criticizing you. That time you don't mind. So compassion is the most important cause to achieve Buddhahood, the most important practice to reduce your anger and hatred and envy. Because our life, mostly we become very unhappy when we're not able to control our anger, hatred, envy. The compassion is the only, practice to control the anger and hatred. Second, we think about bodhicitta. Bodhicitta. Without having great compassion, we should not think about practicing bodhicitta. Without practicing compassion, we cannot imagine, we should not think, I want to be Buddha. Because bodhicitta rooted by great compassion. Without great compassion, no bodhicitta. Without bodhicitta, we cannot think about achieving Buddhahood, right? So today we study about how to develop compassion. Because Buddhahood depends on bodhicitta. Bodhicitta depends on great compassion. Great compassion, practicing great compassion, we have a few, practices we need to study. Page number 3. Compassion. Because he said bodhicitta and perfection of skillful means. Therefore, if you are interested in achieving omniscience, you need to practice these 3. What are the 3? Compassion, the awakening mind of bodhicitta, and skillful means. 3 things very important. The next sentence, the topic is compassion. Moved by compassion, Bodhisattva take the vows to liberate all sentient beings. Therefore, moved by compassion. When you have a great compassion, you are a very compassionate person for all sentient beings, then you always wish all sentient beings free from suffering. Then you will take a vows, you have a commitments. This means I will liberate all sentient beings free from suffering. I will provide all the happiness for all sentient beings. Therefore, moved by compassion, Bodhisattva take the vows to liberate not only one sentient being, 10 sentient beings, 100 human beings, all sentient beings. Right? So also we discuss how we can take the vows, the Bodhisattva vows, from the actual gurus or teacher, or in front of the Buddha's image. And therefore, we already discussed. The next stanza, then by overcoming their self-centered outlook, they engage eagerly and continuously in the very difficult practice of accumulating merit and insight. So when we cultivate compassion, then you are only thinking other benefit for others, other welfares. Then you don't have anymore the self-centered attitudes. Then you can easily practice great compassion, love, kindness, tolerance, and 5 perfections. Through practicing 5 perfections, you can accumulate very easily the one of the merit. Second, through practicing or meditate on emptiness, you can accumulate, the second merit, which is the insight. Accumulating merit and insight. Having entered into the practice, they will certainly complete the collection of merits and insight. So through practicing compassion and through practicing the wisdom, emptiness, then we can accumulate the 2 kinds of merit very easily. Having entered into the practice, which practice? Practice of compassion, and the wisdom, they will certainly complete the collection of merits and insight. Accomplishing the accumulation of merits and insight is like having omniscience is set in your palm of your hand, right? So if you're able to accumulate the two kinds of merit, mean you look like the omniscient in your hands. You should become familiar with the practice form from the very beginnings. Therefore, at the beginning of the Mahayana path, as a first practice, you need to practice great compassion. When you're able to practice great compassion, the compassion towards all sentient beings, you will be able to control the self-centered attitudes. Because due to the great compassion, you always consider to benefit others. You always consider, welfare of other welfare, not your own welfare. You're not never thinking your own benefits. Then you can accumulate the two kinds of merit very easily. Then omniscience look like in your hands, right? You should become familiar with the compassion practice from very beginning. Clear? Compassion. Next, how we should develop great compassion. Then the quotation from the sutras, O Buddha, a bodhisattva should not turn in many practices. If a bodhisattva properly hold to one dharma and learn it perfectly, he has all the Buddha's qualities in the palm of his hand. And if you ask what the one dharma is, it is great compassion, right? Therefore, O Buddha, right? Bodhisattva should not train many practices. Mean, at the beginning, if you follow the Mahayana path, you should not practice so many practices. You emphasize, focus on one practice, which is great compassion. Great compassion. Bodhisattva properly hold to one dharma and learn it perfectly. I mean, if you always practice great compassion and learn how to practice great compassion, then he has all the Buddha's qualities in the palm of his hand. I said many times, he's referred to both male and female. It's exactly the same Tibetan we say, like a ko. Chinese language we say ta. Ta can be female and male. He referred to both male and female. He has all the Buddha's quality in your palm of his hand. And if you ask what the one dharma is, it is great compassion. Great compassion. So you have to be very clear about your daily practice. First, nobody force you to practice Mahayana path. Also, nobody can force you to practice the Hinayana path. Also, nobody can force you to follow Dharma. It's totally freedom. Freedom. If first you need to think, should I practice religion or not? Should I follow a religion or not? He give you option. Then if you think, yes, it's good to have a religion, right? Second, you ask, which religion I should follow? Which religion? Also, it gives you totally freedom. Choose the religion, which religion you follow. Then I said in the past, you need basic knowledge about all religion. In Singapore, we have a Taoism, the Taoist religion. We have a Christianity. We have a Hinduism. We have a Islam. We have a Buddhism. You need the basic knowledge about all this religion. Then, due to your parents, due to your ethnic, if you follow Buddhism, then you have two choices. You can follow the Hinayan path, only liberate yourself, or you can follow the Mahayan path, becoming Buddha to benefit all sentient beings, liberate all sentient beings. You have two options. If you think, oh, within these two, Buddhist traditions, Hinayana and Mahayana, oh, my parents follow the Mahayan Buddhism. Also, I was born in the the family who follow Mahayan. That means the first practice is great compassion. Should not think about practicing like a giving and taking Tonglen. So first as a root, as a compassion. Therefore, if you prefer to follow the Mahayan path, first few months, you only focus generating compassion, great compassion towards all sentient beings. This is very important because you should become familiar with this practice from the very beginning. And Buddha said, Bodhisattva properly hold to one dharma. That means you always hold the compassion as your daily practice. Then your mind turned into compassion. Then what happened? Then he has all the Buddha's qualities in the palm of his hand. And if you ask what that one dharma is, it is great compassion, right? So this teaching gives us very simple explanation how to achieve omniscience, how we can be Buddha. He said, very beginning, you need to practice great compassion. Your mind very familiarized with the compassion. Then all the Buddha qualities will come in your hands. So practice compassion, great compassion. Then next question, how I can practice, great compassion, the compassion which is unconditional, conditional compassion. The next paragraph, the Buddha have already achieved all their own goal, but remaining in the cyclic existence for as long as there are sentient beings. Now you can see at the beginning of the Mahayan path, great compassion is very important because we need bodhicitta. Then you can be Buddha. After you already became a Buddha, you achieved the Buddha's qualities, you already become a Buddha, still compassion is very important. Otherwise, after you become a Buddha, you will abide in the great bliss state forever. You cannot benefit You cannot give any benefit for the sentient beings. Therefore, here as a Buddha, the Buddha have already achieved all their own goals, already achieved Buddhahood, but remain in the secular existence for as long as there are sentient beings, right? Therefore, Buddha Shakyamuni, Amida Buddha, Manjushri, all the Buddhas, they already achieved their own goal, which is the Rupakaya, so the Dharmakaya. Still, why they and then they remain in samsara? Because of the compassion, right? In the secular existence for as long as there are sentient beings. Even though they're in the samsara, there only one sentient being remain in samsara, all the Buddhas will remain with the single sentient being until the sentient being become a Buddha. That means it looks like you are most important person in your family. Your family has, let's say, 5 members in the family. Everybody has problems. Then you support for your families. Then first you solve one problem, the second, third, fourth. Still, you have one family who has problems. That means you still stay with the family in the house to solve the problem for one family, one person, because you have the responsibility to take care of the 5 members in your family. That means Buddha, he already became Buddha, still he remained in samsara to teach Dharma to the sentient being, how to free from suffering. So when we think this, topic, we have one big misunderstanding. Oh, I have a suffering. My suffering can be solved by Buddha. Yes, Buddha can solve your problem. How? Buddha will teach you how to free from suffering, how to free from problem. Buddha cannot remove all your problems, suffering by his hand. Cannot. If this is the case, then the samsara totally free from suffering, because Buddha can remove all the suffering and problems, right? Cannot. Therefore, we should not think my problem can be removed by Buddha, by his hand. Buddha can remove, Buddha can, free you from suffering through teaching Dharma. When Buddha teach you Dharma, you need to practice. For example, you are sick, the doctor free you from the sickness. How? The doctor will give you advice, the doctor gives you medicine, but at the end, you need to eat the medicine. You need to follow the doctor advice. Exactly the same, Buddha can teach you Dharma. We need to practice diligently. If we practice only one time, the problem cannot be end. Right? Therefore, Buddha remained in samsara until the ending of the samsara. They are sentient beings. This is because they possess, who possess? The Buddha possess great compassion. They also do not enter immediately the blissful abode of nirvana like a hearer. Now also you can see the differences between the Hinayana and Mahayana practitioner. The Hinayan path, the Hinayan practitioner, they practice the path to achieve nirvana. When they achieve nirvana, they abide in the nirvana state for forever. Right? The Mahayana practitioner, they practice the path to achieve Buddhahood. When they achieved Buddhahood, they never abide, remain in the blissful state. they will come to samsara, teach dharma. Right? Therefore, why? They have a compassion. Immensely blissful abide of nirvana, like Hira, considering the interest for sentient being first. They abandon the peaceful abode of nirvana as if it is the wire of the burning iron house. So if you have a great compassion, you only consider to benefit others. You only think, other welfare. You never think your own benefit, your own interest. Therefore, Buddha who achieve Buddhahood, they never remain in the blissful state. They will, reconnect in samsara and benefit all sentient beings because of the great compassion. Therefore, great compassion alone is the unavoidable cause of the non-abiding nirvana of Buddha. So it tells us why compassion is so important to practice. Second, how we should practice compassion. How should we develop equanimity, the root of the loving kindness? Please remember the orders. Achieving Buddhahood depends on bodhicitta. Accomplishing bodhicitta depends on great compassion. Great compassion depends on loving kindness. Loving kindness depends on developing the equanimity. Therefore, at the beginning, we need to practice equanimity. Then we can have a, loving kindness mind. Then we can have a great compassion. Then we can have a bodhicitta. Then Buddhahood is not that far. Please remember the order, equanimity. Page number 4, developing equanimity, the root of loving kindness, equanimity. The way to meditate on compassion will be taught from outside, beginning the practice by meditating on equanimity. Right? If you want to practice great compassion, first you need to practice equanimity. Otherwise, your compassion becomes very biased. That means you have a compassion towards the person who like you. You won't have a compassion the person whom you hate the person. Because therefore, until today, our compassion is always be biased compassion. But we say, I wish all sentient beings, free from suffering. We verbally saying, mentally, we don't have a great compassion. We always bias. We always discriminate. Oh, those people, my friends, I must look after them. Those people is my enemy. I must, I should not look after them because they are my enemy. Therefore, you have always biased mind. The compassion always have a bias because we're not able to practice equanimity. Right? Therefore, all sentient beings desire happiness and do not desire misery. So how we should develop equanimity? Try to actualize impartiality towards all sentient beings by eliminating attachment, hatred. Right? So you need to control attachment towards your close one. Also, you need to control hatred, anger towards those people whom you don't like. So there you can see again, you need to control attachment. You need to control your anger towards your enemy, towards your close one. Then why? What the reason, you should not have an attachment towards your friend, You should not have an anger towards your enemy. Why? What basis we need to, I can practice equanimity. Then the reason is here, all sentient beings desire happiness. Right? All sentient beings exactly same as you. For example, if I ask you, what do you want? You want happiness? You want sufferings? What do you want? Of course, everybody say, I want happiness. I don't want miseries. I don't want sufferings. Why you don't want sufferings? Why you want happiness? Why do you want happiness? Very simple. When I have a happiness, I feel very happy, very calm, right? When I have a sufferings and misery, it makes me very unhappy. It makes me very kind of, it disturbs me. Therefore, I don't want suffering. I want happiness, right? Same way, like exactly same. When you think about rest of the human beings, all human beings want happiness, doesn't want suffering. Then why you discriminate between your friends and your enemy? Your enemy also want happiness as your friends. Your friends doesn't want suffering. Also, your enemy, don't want suffering. Then why you discriminate between your friends and enemy? Both of them want happiness. Both of them don't want suffering. Right? Therefore, all sentient beings desire happiness and do not desire misery. Think deeply about how. How? Then, in this beginningless cycle of existence, there's no one sentient being who has not been my friend and relatives hundreds of times. Therefore, since there's no ground for being attached to someone and hating others, what does it mean? First, yes, generally when we think, we really know none of the sentient beings, none of the human being want sufferings. No. Everybody want happiness. This one we can accept. But we cannot accept, practicing love and compassion, your enemy, your foes. We cannot accept. Right? Why? Because we have very, very short-sighted. We thinking only about this life. We are only thinking for the short time. Because we can see in our life, someone used to be your best friend. Today, your best friend is today your enemy. Someone was your, very great enemy. The enemy turned your best friend. How come your best friend become your enemy? Your enemy become your friend. How come? How is happened? We have a very simple reason. Oh, my best friend cheated me. Or my best friend harmed me. My best friend harmed my family. Therefore, your best friend become your enemy. Then why your enemy become your friends? Because in the past, he or she was my enemy, but they help my family. They help me. They support me. They benefit me. You have only few reasons, just simple reasons. Benefit me, become my friend. Harm me, become my enemy. You're only thinking for short-term benefit and short-term harming. If you think in the long term, that means for the beginningless time, right? Therefore, since think deeply about how in the beginningless cycle of existence, there's no one sentient being who has not been my friends. Mean, you consider someone is your enemy. The enemy used to be your best friend in your previous life. The person you consider as your enemy, he or she may be your mother in your previous life, maybe your father in previous life, maybe your wife, maybe your children, maybe your best friend, maybe your teacher. Then how you can think, oh, this is my enemy? With a simple reason. Right? Here, before we think about the beginning less, we need to ask one question. One question. It is logical to accept previous life, or it is just ignorantly we believe in previous life. It is logical or it is illogical to believe in previous life. Right? We have, as a Buddhist, we believe in next life, previous life, karma. We never ask the serious question about previous life. We say, oh, I believe in previous life because Buddha said, because my teacher said. Randomly you can say, oh, I just believe. You don't have a solid reasoning, believing previous life. I ask a question to you, this question for everybody. Do you believe in next life? Do you believe in previous life? Okay, among the 70, Dharma friends, you can answer negatively. I said, do you believe in next life? Do you believe in previous life? This is the question. Any of you think, I don't think there's a previous life. You can say, you can discuss right now. Okay, the question is here. Do you really seriously believe in previous life? Who think there's no previous life? You can unmute. You can answer. Okay, good. Someone is coming.
有来生。
Okay. Do you seriously believe in previous life?
有过去生。
I seriously believe in previous life. Good. How you can prove there was your previous life? How you can prove there was your previous life? Yeah, past life.
现在的我吧。
Ishila, the student says he believes there is a past life because there is a present life.
Do you believe the tree has a previous life? Tree and plant has a previous life? Because there's a present kind of, things there. Do you believe the tree, the plant has a previous life?
有。
Do you think sentient beings and the tree are same?
No.
Why? Why?
这个
Because a plant is
生
not
命
a sentient being.
Why not?
Because it doesn't have a mind.
How do you know the tree doesn't have a mind?
The tree have no consciousness.
It's same thing. Consciousness, mind, feeling. Why? How you can prove the tree doesn't have a consciousness, doesn't have a mind, doesn't feel? How you can prove?
Scientifically, there isn't any proof.
Right? And based on Buddhism, how you can prove the tree doesn't have a mind, consciousness, right? So why I raise this question here?
就是
In order to practice great compassion, you need to believe in previous life and next life. Otherwise, you really cannot, say all sentient beings used to be my relatives, used to be my, friends. But do you remember during the last teaching from His Holiness the Dalai Lama, one of the girl from Ladakh, they asked, without believing in previous life and next life, can we develop bodhicitta or not? Then His Holiness says, yes, without thinking about previous life and next life, still you can cultivate bodhicitta based on exchanging self and others. Right? Exchanging self and others. Based on knowing the falsity of self-centered attitudes, the beneficial of other beneficial of false thinking about the falsity of self-centered attitudes, a benefit of other-centered attitudes. So you need to think which is good: self-centered attitudes, other-centered attitudes. Self-centered attitudes is the door to arise all the suffering, right? So I'm talking related to this teaching. He said here, think deeply about how in this beginning less sacred existence, there's no one sentient being who has not been your friends and relatives hundreds of times. Therefore, since there's no ground for being attached to someone and hated someone, therefore we should not, hate someone as your enemy. We should not truly attach to someone as your friend, because all sentient beings is the same for you. Also, also our daily experience, sometimes I really feel, sometimes I feel very strange. When we see in the dog, cow, horse, sheep that died on the roadside, suddenly we feel compassion. We feel love, feel compassion. When we see, insect, ants, dead on the roadside, dead on the table, you don't have any feeling. You don't feel love and compassion. What happened? Why? And also, as a Mahayan practitioner, when you lost your relative, one of your relative lost life, when you heard the news, one of your relative passed away, you feel upset. When you hear your neighbors or someone pass away, you feel, oh, I'm sorry. You don't have a really, the sense of sadness. How come? For you, your relatives, your neighbors, your enemy are same. And this life, you can say, this is my relatives. And also your enemy, also your relatives in your previous life. I really feel in Western, in our life, as a Mayan practitioner, when we see, that like a cow and sheep that died on the roadside, you feel compassion. When you see the insect, like ants died on your table, you don't have a compassion. Also, when you hear the news, oh, one of your relatives passed away, you feel upset. When you hear your neighbor or someone pass away, you don't have a really, sadness. That means it's very clear we have a strong attachment towards our relatives. We don't have a, really love and compassion towards all sentient beings because we always discriminate, because we're not able to accept all sentient beings equally want happiness, equally doesn't want suffering, all sentient beings equally, kind for me. We cannot accept. So since, we study this text, we need to accept all sentient beings equal, right? Because therefore, since there's no ground for being attached to someone, and hating others, I shall develop mind of equanimity towards all sentient beings. Then how we start? Beginning in meditation of equanimity by thinking of the neutral person, and then consider people who are friends, then foes. Foes mean enemy. Therefore, first you visualize, the neutral person, neither your friends nor your enemy. We just visualize one neutral person and think about, when he or she has a problem, you don't have a compassion. When he or she has a, like a good thing happen, you don't have a sense of a kind of rejoice. Therefore, first you visualize the neutral person and develop love and compassion as much as you can. Very easy because he or she is not your enemy or your friends. Love and compassion. After a few days, few weeks, then you visualize your families or friends. Then you equally cultivate love and compassion towards the neutral person and your close one, but not easy. You can easily cultivate love and compassion towards your friends. Same amount of love and compassion you cannot really cultivate towards your neutral person. Therefore, you have to develop equal love and compassion between your friends and the neutral person. Then you're able to generate same amount of love and compassion between this neutral and your close person, friends. The same amount of love and compassion you need to cultivate based on your enemy. At the beginning, very difficult. You can cultivate love and compassion towards your neutral person, your friends, not your enemy. Then use certain reason, oh, he or she is my enemy this lifetime. In previous life, he or she was my friends. He or she used to be my mother. Then slowly you're going to, practice forgiveness, no more enemy. Then slowly you're able to cultivate love and compassion, right? First, you cultivate love and compassion towards the neutral person. Second, your friends. Third, equally, then cultivate love and compassion, your enemy, equal with the neutral person, friends, enemy. When you have an equal love and compassion towards the 3%, particularly 3% neutral, your friends, your enemy, then second, you extend the same love and compassion towards all sentient beings, right? Here, I shall develop a mind of equanimity towards all sentient beings. Begin the meditation on equanimity by thinking of a neutral person and then consider people who are friends, then foes. After the mind has developed equanimity towards all sentient beings, after you are able to develop same love and compassion towards the 3%, they can develop all sentient beings. All sentient beings. Meditate on love, loving kindness. Most of the mind, you continue in the water of loving kindness, proper as you would piece of the fertile ground. When the seeds of compassion is planted in the such mind, germination will be soft, proper, and complete. When you have irrigated the mind stream with the loving kindness, meditate on the compassion. There's an analogy. What is simply what he's saying here? Practice equanimity. Mean equally practice love and compassion between neutral person and your friends or families. Then same equal love and compassion you can cultivate towards your enemy. Once you have an equal love and compassion, your neutral person, your relatives, your enemy, the same amount of love and compassion you can extend all sentient beings. When you have a pure, compassion, equal love and compassion for all sentient beings, then you have a really kind heart towards all sentient beings. Then your mind becomes very fertile. I mean, it's become very complete to able to practice great compassion. Then bodhicitta you can develop very easily, right? Okay, the next, identifying the nature of sufferings. So this one we discuss next time, next Sunday. Since today, everybody, first you try to understand Buddhahood depends on bodhicitta. Bodhicitta depends on great compassion. Great compassion depends on loving kindness. Loving kindness depends on equanimity. The equanimity, you learn how to practice equanimity. Then equanimity, loving kindness, great compassion, bodhicitta. For the next 1 week, everybody practice, great compassion. Before great compassion, you practice equanimity. So loving kindness. Before practice loving kindness, you practice equanimity. Then same amount of great compassion you can extend all sentient beings. That means you are really starting, practicing Mahayana path. So this is I request you to practice this path. Then suffering, we no need to actually study about suffering. Nobody need introduction about suffering. We really have been going through all kinds of suffering, all kinds of problems. Okay, now we have 20 minutes for discussion. Any question?
Yes, there's questions. Let me. Christine, you may unmute yourself.
Good morning, Gisela.
Good morning.
I'm Christine. My question is, attaining Buddhahood, does it mean that it is the ending of one's life? If it is, what happens to the consciousness of that person who supposedly attained Buddhahood? Thank you.
Thank you so much for asking the question. Yes, it's very important to know what happened after we become a Buddha. The consciousness going to end? Is the ending of the life or not? Right? For example, when someone pass away, we can see the body is, here. The person is no more. We can see the body is there. The body we burn, we bury, whatever, the body is there. That means the person separated. The person separate from the gross body. That means, the flesh body is separate. It doesn't mean the person who passed away, he or she doesn't possess any body. First, you need to know the concept of gross body and subtle body. Gross and subtle. Clear? It's important for everybody. Gross and subtle. The gross body is look like guest house. When you enter the guest house, you have a room, you have a like bed, everything there. When you leave the guest house, you cannot bring the guest house with you. A gross body is exactly look like the guest house. You can possess, you can live. The subtle body never, separate, cannot be separate from you. You and subtle body is always together. Number one. Number two, so when we become a Buddha, for example, Buddha Shakyamuni, so he attained enlightenment under the Bodhi tree. So he possessed the same body when he became Buddha for us. Actually, when he became a Buddha under the Bodhi tree, he has two kinds of body. One, the body which has come from parents. When he became Buddha, he wasn't much depends on the gross body. He only depend the subtle body. When he said Buddha passed away, Buddha, take into parinirvana, mean he and his gross body separated. But still he has another body, another consciousness. So when we become Buddha, it doesn't mean, end of our life, ending of life, ending of consciousness. Love doesn't have an ending, consciousness doesn't have an ending. You remain in the samsara or you remain in the Buddhahood, Buddha land. The life doesn't have an ending, the consciousness doesn't have any ending. It goes continuously forever. But someone become Buddha, he or she possess different kinds of body. You can call, clear light body, illusory body, you can say subtle body. But the subtle body, we cannot see it. So in order to, we receive teaching from actual Buddha, Buddha need to take, gross human form in order to communicate us. If the Buddha only, use the subtle body, the illusory body, we cannot see. Therefore, the Buddha need to take, human body, human form to teach us, for, communicate with us. Simply, there's no ending of life, there's no ending of the consciousness, but there's an ending of the suffering life. There's ending of the contaminated consciousness, not the general consciousness, not the general life. Got clear?
Yes, thank you, Geshe-la.
Welcome.
Geshe-la,
Hmm?
when we try to develop compassion by pity towards a certain point of a person, is this the correct way to develop compassion?
Yes, it is look like a seeds. When you see, the suffered being, even though you're able to cultivate compassion for the, pity person, then it become a seed. Second, then you can extend the same compassion others. But this compassion not considered as a great compassion. Still is a compassion. Also, I mentioned many times, compassion can be two kinds. One totally, mixed with attachment, very contaminated love and compassion, which is we have for our relatives, our friends, our close one. It's kind of compassion, but it's contaminated by attachment. Again, it's condition. Second, there's another compassion, which is totally pure compassion, not attached with not mixed with the attachment. For example, when you see, totally strange person, don't know anything about the person. When you see the person has a lot of physical problems, suddenly you have a pure love and compassion. It's a very pure, no attachment. There's no any kind of attachment mixed with the compassion. It's a very pure, but not great compassion. That means compassion mixed with the attachment, pure compassion, then great compassion. Yes, it's kind of seeds to develop great compassion. It's compassion, not necessarily be pure compassion.
Yeah, thank you, Yeshila.
Welcome.
Yeshila, could you also tell us the difference between loving kindness and great compassion?
Loving kindness and great compassion doesn't differentiate based on the, based on the object. Very simple. For example, in front of me, there's a Mr. B. Just imagine, in front of me, there's a Mr. B. Mr. B mentioned all kinds of his suffering. Suddenly, my mind is moved by compassion, means I wish Mr. B, free from suffering, free from sickness, free from disease, free all kinds of problem. Mean that time I have a mind wishing Mr. B free from suffering. This is compassion. Clear? Compassion. It is Mr. B. Second, I just looking Mr. B, then I wish, he always be happy. He always have a happiness. Mean I'm cultivating love, not compassion. Therefore, love and compassion not differences, not differentiate based on the being. Difference based on the aspect. That means wish to free from suffering, the one is compassion. Wish to achieve happiness, wish the person be happy, that means you are cultivating love. Same person, you can cultivate compassion, you can cultivate love. But love and compassion cannot be same. Clear? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Yeshila.
Yeah, thank you.
If a plant is a sentient being, we cannot eat plant because we will take its life. Is this correct?
You say if. Yes, if plant is sentient being, we should not eat it as a life. Also, we cannot cut the flower. We should not cut the green vegetable. It has a life. Generally, broadly, we can assume the plant doesn't have a consciousness, doesn't have a mind. If you really think precisely, it's not easy to simply say the plant doesn't have a consciousness. You have seen, so many plants, they always open, beautiful flower waiting for insect. When the insect come, they suck the insect, suck the blood. After fully suck the blood, then they throw the dead body. We have this kind of plant. And also think about the fruits. Do you know the very famous fruit is the durian. Durian we name king of the fruits. Think about the durian has so many stink. It will look like the fruits, the tree want to protect the fruits. Look like they want to protect. Then also, I'm not sure somebody did experiment. They grow in two fields, side by side. They play very nice music for one field. Then the field grow very fast, grow well. They didn't put any music for other field. The field grow normally, normal way. So it is not easy to say this consciousness, sorry, the plant doesn't have don't have a consciousness. Not easy at all. But broadly, we say the plant doesn't have a consciousness. What are the logic to say the plant doesn't have a consciousness? Let's say one tree, one piece of plant. If it has a consciousness, how many consciousness it has? One consciousness, many. If there's only one consciousness, then when we cut the plant into two pieces, we plant it in the two places. You can see the plant is growing. One plant, you can cut into two pieces. You plant it on the ground. You can see that 10, plant can grow. The consciousness we cannot divide. This is the logic. We say the tree doesn't have a consciousness. If there's a consciousness, how many consciousness? One or two? Where's the consciousness exist? These are the logic. I think it's very gross, not really, we say, precise logic to prove that tree doesn't have a consciousness. Generally, yes, tree does have a consciousness. The vegetable plant doesn't have a consciousness. If they have a consciousness, we should not eat. It's correct.
Thank you, Geshe-la.
Welcome, welcome. Next question.
Yeah. Compassion is supposed to make one peaceful and calm. What if the practice of compassion make one suffer? For example, sacrificing oneself for the happiness of others in different circumstances, making oneself feel indignant and being taken advantage of.
It depends on the practitioner, how many pure compassion he or she has. Let's say a mother has only one child. This is an example. One mother has only one child. Now we can imagine how much she loves the child. She really, truly loves the child. She really always cares the child. Then one day the child has kidney problems. The child needs a kidney transplant, right? Transplant, right? Transplant. Then the first mother really want to give her one kidney to the child because of love, very much love the child. When she is giving one of the kidney to the child, she never feel suffering. She feel very happy to share one of the kidney to the child because of compassion. If the child need both kidney, she definitely will give both kidneys to the child because of the love. It looks like she has a suffering, but deep down she feels so happy. She feels very proud to share the kidney to the child, even though she knows she cannot survive long anymore. She cannot survive longer. She happily pass away. So bodhisattvas who has a pure love and compassion, he or she doesn't feel the suffering. When somebody cut the hands and legs, definitely physically they feel suffering. Mentally they never feel it's a suffering. he feel, really, joyless. So there's a difference between who has a unconditional love, pure love, who has a impure love, who has a conditional love. Conditional love always bring, like a sufferings and problems. Because you have a condition. You give this me, I can practice compassion. You won't give me this, I will get angry, right? This is the differences. Also, as a beginner or Mahayana practitioner, first few years, you practice compassion, love for all sentient beings. Should not practice compassion practically until you have a stable mind. If your mind is not so stable, you try to practice compassion practically, then you will fall in between. Then you think, oh, practicing compassion no good because so many things happen to you. If your mind is very stable, then you can practice compassion practically. Otherwise, there's a dangers to lose, your compassion. Yeah, this answer for you. Okay, now we have one more question.
That's all we have for now, Geshe-la.
Thank you. Thank you so much for attending the Sunday class. So we continue the Sunday class maybe another 2 to 3 months. Then we will finish the 3 texts, the will of Dharma, then lamp for the path to enlightenment, then middle meditation stage. So we will spend more time about meditation. Then for the next, since today for the next week, everybody try to practice, equanimity. They practice loving kindness, practice compassion. Then you can extend the compassion towards all sentient beings. Then you must have a kind of experience how do you feel when you practice compassion. Also, you must have experience how do you feel when you're very, very angry, get angry arising. Doing contemplation between the feeling with the compassion, the feeling with the angry, then you will have a strong conviction, oh, I must practice compassion, not give a kind of chance for anger to arise. Okay, at last we do the dedication. During our Dharma class, we have accumulated the merits. Today, all the merits we dedicate for able to practice great compassion for developing bodhicitta. Also, we dedicate the merit for world peace. Last, we dedicate the merit to benefit all sentient beings, benefit all the contributors who contribute for Tibetan Buddhist Center. Chanjo Zanjo Rinpoche Magye Bana Gyoje Gyewa Nyamba Meba Une Gondo Bewar Shu Jide Yambe Gyegan Danje Mine Chune Zazra Zaden Zo Matu Moke Guba Gunje Sirene Me De Yedembar Shu